Welcome to Fuzzybutts and Friends. Well, as much as it drives Fuzzybutts all over this world absolutely crazy when they hear me say it, I am your big dog, Luke Robinson. I'm the host of this show, and glad to have back with us this week. She's our co-host and co-producer, Junior of sorts, Ginger Morgan. She's the executive director of the Puppy Up Foundation. Ginger, how are you?
I am doing well. I'm really excited about this episode.
I
learn a lot today.
We are. I especially, although I'm not sure I'm going to be able to put what we learn here to use, because as you know, I've got my Fuzzybutts are Great Pyrenees. And as you know, notoriously, Pyrenees are one of the most untrainable dogs, I think, in the history of dogs and the world of dogs. And I've always wanted to have mine as service dogs to get that certification, but I don't think any of my Fuzzybutts ever will. So here to talk to us today, Ginger, is a wonderful, large organization that trains service dogs. They do just a tremendous number of things. Is Michelle Williams. She's with Canine Companions. Michelle, how are you?
I'm great. We're so excited to be here. Thank you for having us on.
Thank you for being here on Fuzzybutts and Friends. And with her today, we've got a twosome with us. We're so excited to share her personal story, how she's personally been touched by Canine Companions. It's Jeanette Kaliska. Jeanette, how are you? Welcome to Fuzzybutts and Friends.
Great. Thank you for inviting me.
Who is that?
This is Fiji. Fiji.
You beat me to it. Who is that gorgeous fuzzy? But you have Fiji, like the water, like the island.
Yes.
She's gorgeous. We will get to her in a second, so you can tell us all about your story, Jeanette, and her story as well. But let's begin, Michelle, talking about, first of all, let's talk about your Fuzzybutts. You don't have any with you, but do you have some of your own?
I do have actually a release dog from Canine Companions. We have a volunteer puppy raising program, which I'm sure we will chat about. And I raised a puppy for our organization. He did not make it through, as we'll talk about later. I'm sure we have very high standards. Not every dog is a service dog like Fiji. So my guy Midas is just loving being a pet.
Midas. So he's yours. You're gonna keep him. Is that right?
Yep. That's right. Our puppy raisers have first right of refusal for the puppies that they raised. So when I found out that he wasn't going to be fit for service work, I said, come on home. He's actually going to be 9 this year. So he's been with me for quite a while.
Wow. Good for you for getting Midas. Well, I've got a 3-legged Pyrenees that's totally untrainable that will never be a service dog if you want another one. I'm kidding. I love my Grayson. He's my boy. But all right, well, talk to us before we get into Canine Companions. Talk to us, Michelle, about your origin story. How did your passion for our Fuzzybutts and how you got involved with the organization?
Sure. I grew up, I was actually born and raised in Santa Rosa, California, and that's where Canine Companions is headquartered and where were founded in 1975. So I knew about Canine Companions growing up, what a great organization it is. And then when I went to school, I studied communication and political science. I thought maybe I wanted to get into politics, but decided pretty quickly no. And I thought, well, what's a pretty non-political, wonderful organization that I could get involved with, and Canine Companions just seemed like a perfect fit. So I, applied and kind of weaseled my way in here, and gosh, I've been working here I'm coming up on 10 years. So I really love it. The mission is incredible, and one of the best parts is meeting people like Jeanette who receive our dogs and have had our dogs for decades, and just seeing that impact that we're making is so incredible.
Well, let me just share with you, you certainly picked correctly in life. Fuzzybutts over politics, hands down, every day, 7 days a week. So good for you. And I'm glad you're a part of this wonderful organization. So let's talk about Canine Companions. I did some due diligence on your website, and man, I'm excited to learn about it because it's massive. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, we are a large organization. We actually, like I said, we were founded and are still headquartered in Santa Rosa, California, in Northern California. But since 1975, when we were founded, we have become the largest provider of service dogs in the United States. We have 6 training centers across the country, including the one here in Santa Rosa. And we've placed over 7,500 service dog teams since our founding. And Jeanette is one of those, one of many people who have benefited from our dogs. So like I said, we're the largest national nonprofit provider of these incredible service dogs.
That's great. You are an old organization, because I saw one of the things I saw is that you actually own canine.org. What a catch that you have that URL. So you must have snatched that up right when the world came online on the internet. So 7,500 service dogs trained. That's for especially. So let's talk about your service dog part of your organization first. Let's begin with, you said to begin with that you have very strict standards. So 7,500 trained that went through the program successfully. How many did you start with? How many don't make it through the training program?
Yeah, that's a great question. About 55% of our dogs make it through the program. So that leaves about 45% that just aren't cut out for that service work. So I mentioned, really high standards. And Jeanette can speak to this so much better than I can, having these service dogs by her side, but it's so important for the safety, security, and independence of our clients that these dogs are just the best of the best. We could never have a dog that might, get excited and potentially pull someone out of their wheelchair, or a dog that might have some medical issues that is going to be kind of a hardship for our client, which, the dog is there to help them, not to give them, issues. So there's just a lot of temperamental and medical reasons why a dog could be released. And then also, we have really high standards for our skills. So our service dogs learn to pick up dropped items and deliver them to people in 3 different ways. They learn to open and close doors and drawers. They learn to turn on and off lights, and more. So, these dogs just have to be the best of the best. So to give you, an idea, about half of our dogs make it through the program.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, I'm not sure that we learned about your wonderful organization through Dean Koontz. We had him on the podcast back in January, the start of season 2, and he just talks about how wonderful your organization is, and it changed his life by meeting you. And let's talk about, let's introduce Jeanette Kaliska, someone else whose life you have changed. Jeanette, how are you? Let's hear about Fiji and her wonderful story, and yours.
Great. Actually, I've been with Canine Companions for a while because I've gotten multiple dogs over the years from them. My first dog, well, let me start with my disability. I have spinal muscular atrophy type 2, which means it's a degenerative muscle disease. And gradually, I knew I was going to lose strength and not be able to do certain functions. So originally, I could walk, never run. And as I started to lose strength, I went and I would try to keep my independence any way possible. When I moved to California, because of the snow in the Midwest, I ended up here and I saw someone with a service dog, and it was from Canine Companions. And I thought, oh, what a great way to have independence, to have some animal be there for me 24/7 and be able to help me. And so I applied and I got my first dog. And my first dog saved my butt from being in the hospital, because I got up to take a shower one morning and I would use a barrier-free lift, which runs on a track on a ceiling, and it has a remote wire to the top. 6 a.m. I was watching what I was doing, and I got already left for work. I would have been hanging there all into the bedroom, jump on my bed, and get a remote that I could call for help. So I could call, I got the help, I got saved, I got to work, and from that moment on, these dogs became invaluable to me. And many, many times, I was a teacher for 30 years, and now I've retired, but my dog would carry my little briefcase of papers
Mhm.
into my car and drop it on the back seat. When I would get to school, pick it up, jump off the seat, carry it into the school, put it on a table outside my classroom door, and then push the lever handle door. And I would go in. The dog would turn on the lights, help me with things I dropped throughout the day, listen to kids' stories, problems. Kids would earn rewards to read to my dog. So it was an incentive for them, became an integral part of the classroom. And I cannot tell you how many times I've dropped the eraser for the whiteboard, a marker, my keys to my car, and my dog has always been there 24/7.
That's wonderful. Now, Jeanette, do you have to train them? I mean, it sounds like from what Michelle was saying, is they come pretty preloaded with all the tasks that they can do. Are there any? Tell us about some of the tasks they do in your household, and have you trained them for some new tasks?
Yeah. So part of the training, when we go to apply for a dog, we are up there for 2 weeks, and they teach us. We work with different dogs to see which one might be the best fit. And then when we have a pre-match, we are working with the different commands that they've already learned. And then part of the training is to teach us how to build on the commands they already know. So I'll give you an example. The minute I came home, one of the first things I taught my dog is to go get the phone. I keep a phone on the floor because if I fall over in my wheelchair, I can't sit up. And then I can call for help. Because when I'm hanging there, I can't reach in my purse and get my phone. And so immediately I worked on that command. The other commands I work on are things like opening my refrigerator and pulling out my lunch. So they can open, they tug it open, they step inside, they get my lunch, they take it out, they put it on my counter where I'm gonna eat, they go back and close the refrigerator. I basically build on whatever I know I'm going to need. They're so intelligent.
That's wonderful. I can see Fiji right now. It's almost like Fiji looks like she's at work. She's there. If you need her, whatever you need, she's very serious, and I can see the intellect in her eyes. So Michelle, talk to us. That's just absolutely wonderful. So is Jeanette formally referred to as a client? Is that correct, or what do you just a parent, or what do you refer to her as?
Yeah, we call them clients, or
Clients,
also you may hear them referred to as graduates, as they do
Graduate.
graduate our program. But yeah, Jeanette is one of our clients. Fiji is a service dog, and then we call them together a service dog team.
Service dog team. I love that. So you actually, for every one of your clients, you have them come out to your facilities and work, and then what their special needs are in their situation, and then you incorporate that in the 2 weeks of training, and then they're able to go home. Is that accurate?
That's absolutely right. And you actually, gosh, you got it really perfectly. I'll just expand a little bit. Yeah, depending on where you live in the United States, you would come to kind of your nearest training center for that 2 weeks of training. We actually have dormitories on our campuses. You stay here for the 2 weeks. You work with a couple different dogs. And then you are matched with your dog that we think is going to be kind of your perfect match, and you work with that dog more. And it all ends in a graduation ceremony that is just super heartwarming. So wonderful to see kind of the culmination of all that love and hard work.
That's wonderful. So that's why you have so many training centers. I looked at the map. You have them all over the United States, because that's where you do the individual work. And it's wonderful that you have dormitories there, so that they're on campus. So Jeanette was there on campus for 2 weeks, never had to leave. That's just absolutely wonderful. How many training centers do you have? Let's just go ahead and talk about it. It was further down the list, but how many do you have across the U.S.?
Yeah, so we have actually 6 training centers across the US. You probably saw a ton of other dots on the map are our volunteer chapters, which I know we're going to talk about later. But those training centers are in Northern California, Southern California, Ohio, Texas, New York, and Florida. So kind of spattered across the United States. We try to make it easy for people kind of wherever they are.
That's very helpful. So walk us through the process, Michelle. How do you find Jeanette, or how does Jeanette find you? And then I'm sure there's an application process. Walk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We people find us from all sorts of different things, including, opportunities like this. We definitely hear from our clients that they saw us in in a news segment or on a podcast or in an ad or something like that. But oftentimes it's also word of mouth. Jeanette mentioned seeing someone with a canine companion service dog. We hear that a ton. And I imagine, Jeanette, I hope I'm not wrong, but there's probably been a person or two that you've suggested maybe look into canine companions, and that may have come to fruition. So that's pretty incredible. I think generally we have about 400 people on our waiting list nationwide all the time. So we're not necessarily, we want to help every client that we can, but we're not always we don't have to search for applicants. They come to us, and we consistently have about 400 people on that waiting list, and we place about 350 dogs a year. So we get through almost that waiting list every year.
So you turn over a waiting list a year, basically. That's the wait time. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah. One year recently, we had placed 365 dogs. And so I said, a dog a day. Pretty much.
There you go. That's wonderful.
So where do you get the puppies, and are there specific breeds that you look for?
Yeah, that's another great question. Actually, owed a lot to our breeding program and our incredible veterinarians and research team here. So we have had our own breeding program basically since our founding. And before we kind of settled on that, we did some rescue dogs. We worked with different breeds. We used some corgis. We used some border collies, all sorts of different breeds. And we really found that the mix of Labrador retrievers and golden retrievers is kind of the perfect breed for what we're looking for them to do. They're natural retrievers, and one of those tasks is to pick up items off the ground. They're also extremely trainable. They love food. And look at Fiji just staring into Jeanette's eyes there. They're very attentive, right? So we find that they are kind of the best for what we're looking for. So all of our dogs are actually bred in Northern California. We have volunteers who have the female and male breeder dogs, and the volunteer breeder caretakers for the female dogs actually whelp the litters in their home and have the puppies in their home for up to 8 weeks. So those people are incredible. I know, Ginger, I see your face like, wow, that's a lot.
It is. I fostered a litter of 7 puppies until they were about 9.5, 10 weeks old. And it was nonstop work. And there was no mama, but I got them when they were about 4 weeks old. So they didn't eat. I only bottle fed them for a couple of days and then started them on gruel. But yeah, it's exhausting.
It is. And I can't say enough. Thank you for saying how much work it is, because I can't say enough how incredible those breeder caretakers are. They're amazing. So after that first 8 weeks, those breeder caretakers actually turn in the puppies to our training center here in Northern California. Our veterinarians look over them, make sure they're happy and healthy, and then they go off to our volunteer puppy raisers all over the country. So those incredible people raise our puppies from when they're teeny tiny little 8-week-old balls of fluff to when they're 1.5 years, and then they turn them back into us for that professional training. So it's,
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'll forget this if I don't. So sorry. So what do the puppy handlers, what specific things do they make sure that when they're turning the puppies back in at 1 year, 1.5 years old, that they know how to do?
Yeah, it's actually over 35 commands or tasks, which sounds like a lot. It sounds overwhelming, but they do add up pretty quickly. One is sit, one is down, one is their name. So they add up quickly, but it is a lot. It's many more and more more time intensive and more stringent than training a pet. We do have weekly puppy classes, though, that people can go to. We have puppy program managers in each region that our volunteers can, email or call anytime that they need some help. But it is a huge and rewarding project, but it's incredible.
Well, it's a huge commitment. If I just want to make sure I got the numbers right here. So these what is the term? These puppy managers,
puppy raisers
have them from 8 weeks to 1.5 years. And they have to teach them 35 commands. Now, are these the volunteers or are they paid?
Those are volunteers. And I
Wow.
will say, thank you for making that distinction. We could not do what we do without them. It would cost so much money for professionals to take these dogs from 8 weeks. So the fact that our volunteers, all over the country can take them and socialize them to all sorts of different environments and people and sites, and teach them those commands is just invaluable. It's incredible.
Well, we have the Puppy Up Foundation. I'm not sure what you know about that. Ginger's the executive director of it, and ours is an entirely volunteer-based organization. We have we have 2 paid people, I think. I'm not sure. Ginger can tell you more specifically, but we have not chapters. I guess they're chapters across the country. So know about volunteers and just how wonderful and mission critical really they are. But that is a gigantic commitment, and then you have to take them. They have to turn them in.
Yes.
I don't know if you could convince me to raise a puppy from 8.5 and to be like mind sync, like to have Vulcan mind meld with them, and then have to say goodbye. That's tough.
It's
Okay,
incredibly difficult.
Can
Go for
I
it,
add
Jeanette.
one thing?
Yes,
I feel
please.
like the people that have trained my dogs become part of my family. So it's an extension, so I'll give you an example. My previous dog to Fiji, the family went to Disney World with me. We've spent a week together.
Wow.
With Fiji, we met down in Disneyland. She flew down there when I was going down for a conference. So we keep in touch. I send them pictures. I, answer questions if they have a question. But it's an extension of a family. And
That's wonderful.
Want them to know how much it means to me to help my life be better for what they've done. It's huge. It's making a big difference in the world in a simple way.
Yeah,
I know it's a lot of work and it's got to be heart-wrenching for them, but I want them to know, and I let them know all the time. For me, it's like a life-giving, independence.
That's such an important message, and I'm sorry I almost cut in there a couple of times. You were cutting out, and I couldn't tell whether you had stopped or not. But that's just such a wonderful, beautiful message, Jeanette. That you thank the volunteers that saw Fiji and the dogs before her through that process, and it's also equally powerful that they're still part of the family, and they still. I was just going to amusingly say or point out that if Ginger ever signed up as a puppy raiser and gave that sort of commitment, you would never not hear from her. She'd probably be bugging you every day for pictures, for videos, and so on and so forth, because that's how committed Ginger is to.
Well, first off, most likely when it hit that about 1.5 year mark, I would probably disappear with the puppy.
I believe her. Yeah, she would.
I've fostered dogs before for months, and my thing is as long as I know that there's a plan, then I'm good for the long haul. As long as I know that there's a plan, so I might be able to do it.
Yeah, and I think
I was going to say that my dogs, not only are there every minute of the day. At night, if I'm in bed and I need help, they're there. I can count on them. I don't have to call someone to come over to help me. And when I had pneumonia, my dog would lay across my abdomen and help me cough because I didn't have enough strength. My dog to me is very valuable, more than people realize. It's not just a pet. It's, to me, everything in the world.
Well, it really is, Jeanette. I'm so glad you mentioned that. It really is. Fiji really is a caretaker. She is your caretaker.
Yes.
And so she has a job. And so she's not only family for you and a loved one and a mate to you, a life mate to you, but she's also performs that critical caretaking role. I wanted to ask you, and this does bring up an important question that I had made a note of earlier, is that she's so dialed in to you all the time. But gosh darn it, I think about the Fuzzybutts. Do you ever let her rest? Does she ever get time to does she get a vacation? Does she get time off? Because nobody can work all the time.
So, when her backpack's off, she'll go around the house, pick up toys, whip them around, but when I need her and I call her, she's right there. Or if she hears me drop something, she's become so in tune to it that she comes running to see if I want it. She'll hear a pen fall or something. There she is. She's right on it. And she doesn't, I don't think of it as work, because she's always rewarded with hugs and kisses and, love. And so to her, that's her reward and her happiness.
Yeah,
Well, I think with the labs and the golden retrievers, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they like to please, and they also like to have jobs. And a dog with a job is a happy dog. So I think that you've picked great breeds for that, for sure.
yeah, and the dogs that aren't so happy to work, like Jeanette was explaining about Fiji, those are usually the dogs that don't make it through our program, because it's really the dogs that want to work, that are wagging their tail when they're picking something up. Those are the ones that are successful in the program.
So I call Fiji my wiggle butt, because whenever she works for me, her whole back body is going back and forth, right? Yes. It's just wiggling and her tail's going 100 miles an hour.
That's wonderful. It's such a wonderful story. So I also noticed, Michelle, on your website, that you have something called facility dogs, and I was curious about the distinction between the service dog aspect of Canine Companions and the facility dog aspect.
Yeah, that's a great question, because we do get that question a lot. Also kind of a confusion. Oh, a facility dog, like a therapy dog? And we'll also say, no, very different than that as well. So our service dogs are for adults or children or veterans with physical disabilities, or veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. We also train those dogs. And so those service dogs are trained and matched with someone with a disability. Those are kind of the two things that are requirements of being a service dog. Does this dog trained in a task to help mitigate a disability, and does the handler have a disability? So those are kind of the needs there. And then, so the facility dog is different, because the facility dog will actually work and be matched with a professional who works with people in, could be criminal justice settings, educational settings, medical settings. So I'll give a few examples here. In hospitals, a lot of times we have facility dogs that work alongside child life specialists in children's hospitals, kids who are going through cancer treatments, to really use the same commands, but to help really motivate their clients to get through these horrible times in their lives. Some of them not so horrible, right? It could be someone in physical therapy who working with a dog is going to be so much better than doing just some monotonous motion. Maybe you can be throwing a tennis ball to a dog, or doing a balancing practice with a dog. I mentioned criminal justice. We also have facility dogs who work with police officers or DA, district attorney offices, to help children and adults going through sometimes the hardest time in their life, having to testify about something, and the dog being there to kind of use some of those commands to play interactive games with them, or comfort and motivate them to really help that be an easier task. So the difference there is that these dogs, facility dogs, do not have public access, because they're not a service dog, but they have access in their facility. So our facility dogs are matched with someone who works generally 40 hours a week in a specific facility, and are going to use the dog to work with their clients.
Are they the flunkies? I'm sorry, Jen, let me ask this question really quick. It's okay. But are they the flunkies from the service dog training program? You didn't make it through the service dog, now you're a facility dog.
So no, but it's kind of a different temperament and a different level of skills. So if this would make sense, a facility dog might have to pick up an item like a puzzle piece and then put the puzzle together with a kid, or maybe pull on a tug strap to help somebody working on balance. But a service dog is going to work, not just 40 hours a week. They're going to work kind of all the time, as Jeanette said, with, time off, of course, in between. But those dogs are going to have, I guess, the ability to do those skills more frequently, and sometimes without as much, I guess, guidance from the handler. So yeah, does that make sense?
It does. It does. Ginger, I think you wanted to talk about Pete. I'm betting.
No, actually I didn't. I wanted to mention my brother had a stroke many years ago, and literally maybe 4 or 5 months after having the stroke, he got a puppy. a black lab puppy. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is a disaster. This is just a disaster because the dog's jumping. And of course, I brought the dog with me and I gave her some basic commands. You know, I had her for about 3 or 4 weeks. My brother never followed through with any of that, you know, like, well, she doesn't do anything. Well, do you ask her? Well, no. But anyway, but the thing is his mobility was pretty good, but he, you know, he had fine motor skills, but he would throw the ball. And when I was there, when he was doing it, I was like, he had the problem with his left hand. I said, throw with your left hand, you know, get that motion going in. And I do think that it helped him, but just having her there was a comfort to him anyway. I don't know how he would have made it through not having her, but
well, that's
yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, I'm good.
So that segues into a question that I had, Michelle. Are all the service dogs that are raised from puppies and then that go on through the training course, are all of them set aside for the mission of your organization, or do you train service dogs that, say, like somebody that's not like Jeanette that goes through that program, or do you train service dogs for something other, for outside purposes, or do all the service dogs go towards your mission?
So all of our service dogs are placed through Canine Companions, but there are some dogs who are released from our program and then go on to work at other organizations in other capacities. Some of those service dogs, but in different ways. So some of our dogs who aren't fit for our program will go to an organization called MSA. They do like explosive and bomb sniffing dogs. Some of our dogs will go to diabetic or seizure alert organizations. So there are times that our dogs are placed in other working roles for other needs, but not through our organization, if that makes sense.
It does. So tell us, if you can, or list the best you can, the disabilities that are approved or that are part of the application process. Who can apply?
Sure. And I guess and I guess it wouldn't be necessarily just based on the disability, but how kind of they expect to and want to use the dog and the skills and tasks that they're going to have the dogs use. But we do serve people with over 65 different disabilities, including a huge category that's other, because there are so many rare and different types of disabilities. But a lot of our clients will have spinal cord injuries, muscle things like Jeanette was explaining, or muscular dystrophy, multiple sclerosis. We'll also have children with Down syndrome and autism, as well as some other physical disabilities. We serve adults who are deaf or hard of hearing. So those are our hearing dogs. They're also service dogs, but they learn to alert people who are deaf or hard of hearing to sounds in their environment, which is just incredible. Those of us, I imagine all of us are hearing, you'd never even know what the type of anxiety that our deaf or hard of hearing counterparts are experiencing, thinking that they're going to miss these important sounds, something as important as a fire alarm. So that is pretty incredible. So just really a huge number of different disabilities. There are other organizations that train, guide dogs for the blind, or medical alert dogs for seizure, or diabetes, different things like that. But we really serve people with physical disabilities, a huge number of them, but the dog doing these practical tasks for people.
Yeah, boy, Grayson would certainly not be a candidate at all for your service program at all, because especially not those with the hearing impaired, because we were just on backpacking through the New York State up in the mountains, and a bear came crashing down in the middle of the night towards our tent, and I woke up first. So he would not be able to, he would certainly not be a suitable candidate for that program.
I wanted to take Grayson with me to a conference. And I thought he would be great to be at our booth, right, Ambassador? And the hotel said, well, they have to be a service dog or something else. And I'm like, no, I think he wouldn't be my service dog. I would be his service person. Right? It's like, oh, here I am, do this for me, so yeah, no.
Yeah, but I do think it is, though, a two-way relationship, though. You look at Jeanette and Fiji right there is a perfect example of them together, that they service each other, I guess, is a way to look at it. It's a mutual relationship that you have, a partnership, a beautiful partnership that you have. One of the now that they're having fun and talking about fun things, one of the other things I wanted to talk about, Michelle, were your dog fest. Those sound fun. Tell us about that.
Yes, and actually, after I tell you a bit about Dog Fest, we're going to have to ask Jeanette about it because they had the most incredible costume. It was near Halloween. They had an amazing costume last year. Our Dog Fest events are fun, dog-friendly, family-friendly festivals that celebrate and benefit canine companions. So it's a peer-to-peer fundraiser online leading up to the event, and they're all over the country. You can find out more at canine.org/dogfest. Like I said, dog friendly, so you can bring your pet dogs even to this event. And it's a lot of fun. And the one that we went to locally here, Dog Fest Bay Area, Jeanette and Fiji entered into our famous canine costume contest, and they were incredible. I feel like you guys won something this year.
So Fiji went as the ice cream sundae, and I was the ice cream scoop.
That's great. Gosh, I wish we had some pictures here to share. We occasionally do that. Ginger, we need to do a better job. Or
we do.
You as the junior co-producer of this show need to get more pictures because that makes the difference. And I bet the two of you are very cute, Jeanette. That's great. That's wonderful. All right, Michelle, is there anything else? Oh, I did want to mention, you kind of crossed this out, but you have it on your website. I love great goals. I love ambitious goals. I have them myself. Often they're unattainable, or they take a lot longer than I anticipate or forecast they will. But on your website, you guys said your 2025 strategic goal is to become the largest service dog training organization in the world. Is that correct?
Yes, and as I mentioned, we're well on our way. And I think one thing that we mentioned, and we kind of call this like our pipe dream, like we know this isn't necessarily possible, but this is where we always want to be headed, is we want a 100% access for people and their service dogs. And that means, some of our clients are denied access with their service dog, and it's against the law, of course, but there's a lot of misrepresentation, people bringing their pet dogs into public, and a lot of things happen there. So we want everyone with a service dog to have access in public where they legally should. And we also want to be able to provide a service dog to anyone who needs one. So we know that that's a huge goal, but something that, that all of our decision making is driving toward that goal, more service dogs for people who need them and increased access for service dog users.
Yeah, that's just wonderful. I also think when you're talking about it, there really should be another designation. And back to what Ginger was saying earlier, there really should be another designation other than just service dogs, because Ginger's about to fly down to Narlands to go to, I think, an HSUS conference. And she was going to take Grayson, but he's never going to attain the service dog achievement, not even a participation award. He wouldn't even get the participation award at all. God bless my boy. But Narlands is a dangerous place, and she's down there by herself. And there is a public and a societal need to have more dogs with you as you go on about in society. So I think what you're trying to do legislatively is wonderful.
Sure, and I'll speak to that a little bit, but I have a feeling it's not going to be the answer that you want, but I think it's a really important thing that we talk about. So I mentioned not only do the dogs have to be trained in practical tasks to help someone, but the handler has to be someone with a disability that's being helped by that dog. So the thing that I really want to drive home, and I think Jeanette can speak to this so much better, but our clients often, the reason why we're so we think the legislation is so important and why we don't necessarily want another designation for dogs is because our clients run into ill-behaved pet dogs or dogs that are being claimed are service dogs but are not. And no problem for how your pet dog behaves at home. Hey, we don't mind. But when it comes out into public and then interacts with someone with a legitimate service dog, that can be a real problem. So sometimes, we've had dogs who have been attacked by aggressive dogs or distracted by dogs, or even distracted can be just being distracted by another dog in public can really be a detriment to the handler. And so, of course, our dogs are supposed to not pay attention to any dogs. But that's kind of why we get, I guess, a little preachy about this, but it's really important to our clients and to all service dog users that people without disabilities and that don't have a service dog do not bring their pets into public. And so one thing that we actually, so I'm sorry, Ginger, for your trip, but one thing that we actually have,
that's all good.
okay, yeah, one actually thing that we actually,
I would like to add that with my second service dog, I was downtown San Jose walking to an art and wine festival, and I saw this other dog being walked towards me, and that dog got loose from the owner and was out of control and attacked my service dog. And I'm trying to get my dog unhooked from my chair and get away from that dog. And it just kept biting my dog. And thank God somebody ran out of a building, grabbed the other dog and said, go in the building. Or my dog could have been dead. And the person's like, I'm so sorry. But at that point, it was too late. And the other thing that has happened to me, I was in a Safeway store, and someone was in there with a backpack on a dog, and they were walking around, and the dog literally was growling and lunging towards my dog, and they had to drag the dog out of the store. And I'm just trying to get groceries, with my service dog. So I always have to be on guard because I don't want anything to happen to my dog. And I worry about what can I do to protect myself, because I'm not strong, I'm not able to, but I do everything I can to ensure my dog's not going to run into a situation.
Yeah, these are salient points, Michelle, because Ginger can speak to this ad infinitum and ad nauseum. She ran the Humane Society here for 4 years, and the pet parent is the problematic part because they don't know their companion animal well enough. They don't train them. They don't have the relationship, and they just unloose them on society. So it's a big problem. But I do want to speak to something about that, though, Jeanette, because I'm not sure if you know, I backpacked 4,250 miles cross country, and our greatest threat, aside from people running us over on the road every day, were feral packs of dogs, and it terrified me because we were exposed to that. And on the first walk, I had dozens of encounters with feral dogs. One in Madison, Indiana, I think there were six that were going to attack us. And what I learned, and this might help you, something for you to consider, and I should speak about this more often because we hear all the time about dog attacks. What I learned is even though you have your disability, is your voice and your presence and your command of the situation is your first line of defense. And so even if you have maybe carry an air horn or some type of thing that you can make a noise that can get control of the situation just to break it up, because I feel for you, because there are a lot of pet parents, and we could continue on for a couple of hours talking about pet parents.
Yeah,
Irresponsible parents out there.
People absolutely, well, not everybody, obviously, but a lot of people don't pay any bit of attention. I wanted to go back to something you were talking about, the service dogs in Grayson. So I was at an event in Milwaukee, and tons of people, the only dogs that were allowed in there were dogs that were adoptable or service dogs. So I'm in the restroom washing my hands. This lady comes out with her service dog. She has a vest on, and I'm always real cognizant because I always want to pet all the dogs. And so I just look at the dog and I continue washing my hands, and she tells the dog to sit. And I'm washing my hands and she tells the dog to sit again. And I went, my eyes pop open. I look at the lady next to me. We're looking at each other. We don't say a word. The third time the girl tells the dog to sit, the dog still doesn't sit. And we're just looking at each other. We finish washing our hands and walk out. But it was just like that melding of the minds with the other lady that was like, that's not a service dog. You don't ask your service dog more than once. As a matter of fact, probably when you go to wash your hands, you don't ask your service dog to sit at all. It probably automatically sits. And I'm just like, how That has got to be one of the most irritating things to people who have service dogs, for these people who get a vest from someplace, put it on their dog only because they want their dog to be able to go someplace.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even, the thought didn't cross my mind, but I wouldn't try that with Grayson at all, because I could tell him to sit for 130 minutes and he's not going to sit. I could be hoarse by the time I finised, but
yeah, we
it's just-
Ginger, we really can't continue on like needling pet parents because we don't want to lose audience. We don't have
well, no, I think most of the people who are listening
No, I know.
probably feel the exact same way.
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
You know what?
there's-
Oh, sorry, go for it.
go ahead.
Ginger.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, we don't think the majority of people who are doing this, bringing their pet dogs into places they shouldn't be, or even misrepresenting their dog as a service dog, we think that the majority of them don't realize what a harm it can be. We don't think they're bad
Yeah.
people. So I love that you brought that up, Luke. Everyone who's listening, if you've done this, if you're currently guilty of this, no problem. We're just asking you to think about it and maybe change your behavior for the future. We don't think people are doing this because they want to harm service dog users or people with disabilities. We think it really is, they just think there is no harm and I just want to have my pet with me everywhere I go. So we're just trying to, make it clear that, hey, it is harming someone. And we hope they'll just reconsider.
Yeah, again, we could talk about this forever because actually, I just find it's amazing that people can get companion animals and not like go through some type of testing process or some type of certification process, because you get a bad pet parent and they could certainly do damage for sure. And they are in the minority. I've met thousands through my walks. I've met thousands and stayed with hundreds of pet parents and met Fuzzybutts all over the place. And I got to tell you, maybe 1% to 2% are knuckleheads, unfortunately. Right. So good thing they don't run the show. So speaking of that, we're kind of running right now. We're going to be wrapping things up. So Jeanette, I would like you to start out, please, if you don't mind. Share with our audience any last words that you have for pet parents out there, or anybody. Just anything you'd like to say before we go.
I think dogs are man's best friend, and they will be loyal to you till the end and want to help you if you love and treat them with respect. And I think that if people would think twice about taking their dog into a situation that maybe the dog isn't comfortable with, and then the dog would be happier and they probably would be happier too. But Canine Companions for me over the years has been incredible, and the dogs are high quality. And the nice thing about that, they're always reassessing the state of the dog, the health of the dog, and I'm getting recertified so that if I have any issues or any problems, they're there to support me, which makes it really nice.
Hey, that's wonderful, and I hope I didn't interrupt you. If I did, my apologies. You can always pick up, but it's a sort of question. It's a wonderful question I have. Is that so? Canine Companions, you guys track the lifetime of the companions forever, right? Is that correct? So you
Yeah, we provide ongoing follow-up services for the lifetime of the team. And then Jeanette mentioned she had multiple dogs. We'll get you another dog if you need when yours retires. Yeah, it's just incredible.
Well, the Puppy Up Foundation, our focus is cancer in our companion animals. And so you track data. I'm a data guy. I always want more data, need more data. How can we analyze and learn more from data? Do you, does Canine Companions, do you also track the health of it and the ones that get cancer? Do you have that data?
Yeah, so oh my God, that's such a great question. And you're going to have to visit the research part of our website now that you mentioned that. You would love it. We are constantly getting information about our service dogs and our release dogs and the, issues that they're having, medical issues, and then their cause of death. So we're constantly looking to weed out medical conditions, including like cancers, which can be pretty prevalent in Labradors and Goldens. So always looking at that data to make sure that we're breeding, that our breeders are going to be the healthiest and provide the healthiest puppies and future service dogs.
Yeah, I have an interest in perhaps we can certainly we'll certainly talk offline, and maybe you can connect us with the right person. But definitely, if you don't have anybody that's looking at that retroactive data about cancer, that certainly would be an interesting research project, because data is so valuable. And you're limited to a number of breeds, but there's still data to be looked through. And I'm a data mining kind of guy, so we can, if you maybe Ginger and stuff, when we follow up and everything, we'd love to be connected with someone in the organization that would know more about that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, if you guys are interested, our research team and our kind of data folks, our veterinary breeding folks, they are so interesting, way more, I speak in layman's terms. They're very sciencey, and some of it will go right over my head, but it's so interesting, and I'm sure they'd be happy to be on if you guys were interested in the future. But yeah, we are looking at, rates of cancer. Also, we do puppy cognition testing when the puppies are just 8 weeks old to see if these little tests can determine successful characteristics for future service dogs. So of course, this is years and years in the making, and continuing, but just incredible.
Yeah, now maybe I love to cross-pollinate with our guests. I love to introduce companies doing similar things, people that can help each other out. Another thing is we had on our podcast the dog aging project, and
Yes.
that would be, are you partnered with them? Because that would be another great organization, because you have 7,500 dogs. That's a lot of data, and they are all about data, just like me. Have you talked about?
I don't want to misspeak, but I believe we do some work with them, and I think we contribute some of our research to the dog aging project. I'll have to double check this with our research team.
I'm sorry for nerding out. I do it.
No, it's great.
I can't nerd out at the level of scientist, but I can get kind of close and everything. And Ginger's always like that. You're too much on the science. You're being a nerd. So thank you for that. That's very exciting. We love to cross-pollinate with our guests and make the connections that make sense. And then more importantly, we love to look at future potential projects, research projects for our foundation as well. All right, now, Michelle, I'd like to ask you, what are some last words that you'd like to share with pet parents out there? Anyone, please.
Well, I know, we mentioned puppy raising, and that's actually something that we are really in need of right now at Canine Companions. We need more volunteer puppy raisers. So Ginger, looking at you, just kidding. So for those of you who I imagine we're talking to a lot of pet parents and pet lovers, for those of you who have maybe an extra spot in your heart and your home for about 1.5 years, consider raising a future service dog. It is, you mentioned, how do you give them up? It's heartbreaking, but it's so rewarding. And one puppy raiser told me, which kind of speaks to Jeanette mentioning, it's so important. It's so important. She said, I love these dogs, but I don't need these dogs. And somebody else needs this dog. That's really going to impact their life. And so that really has stuck with me. And so if anybody's interested in learning more, you can go to canine.org. You can apply for a service dog there. If you are interested in applying for a service dog, you can donate to make all of our work possible. I think I didn't mention all of these dogs are valued at about $50,000, but we give them all away for free. And that's because of support of, podcasts like this and donors all over the country. So it's pretty incredible. So canine.org to learn more.
That's wonderful. Go ahead and give us your social media contact information once again.
Yes, absolutely. So for social media, on Instagram and TikTok, we are Canine.org. On Facebook, we're Canine Companions.
I paused there for a second because I didn't write down my question and I almost forgot it. And I think it's an interesting point is I would imagine that you have your volunteers, your wonderful volunteers. Some of them have had relatives that have been affected by ALS or something like that. And the need, because they've been personally impacted by someone with special needs or a disability, they have that give back sort of need. So I think that hopefully through this podcast, you have some volunteers that have been touched by somebody and they realize what a gift Fiji is to someone like Jeanette. Okay, Jeanette, well, I'm going to give the last words to you and then we'll give the mic to Ginger, who will do our cancer tip of the week. So Jeanette, go ahead, please.
Have a wonderful day and enjoy the dogs in your life. They're worth it. Woof, woof.
Absolutely. Every second. Well, Jeanette and Fiji, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And Michelle Williams, thank you for the wonderful work you do with Canine Companions. I can clearly see you got a communication degree, and you're the talker in the organization. Wonderful job. Now, this is the time of the show. We like to take a moment and give the Puppy Up Foundation an opportunity to share with our audience the cancer tip of the week. So, Ginger, take it away, please.
You know, this is one of the ones that I harp on all the time, but after we just took Indiana to the vet yesterday, is always check for lumps and bumps. Indiana's fine. Well, there you go.
Fiji, for those of you who are listening and not watching, Fiji, the beautiful lab that's Jeanette's service dog, she jumped on top of Jeanette's lap.
You know, I let her on my lap and we cuddle for like a half an hour every day. And now that I told her she did a good job staying on that chair all that time. So I said, okay. So,
well, you mentioned at before that we began recording the show that Fiji was a lap sitter, and man, is she, because we can barely see your head. She takes up frame. All right, sorry about that, Ginger.
That's okay. I was like, I'm glad you did that because I totally got distracted. So for the Puppy Up Foundation, we always try to remind people at the beginning of every month to check your dogs for lumps and bumps. Watch it, see if you find something, mark it. We have you can email us at info@puppyup.org and we'll send you a little checklist on what to look for, a little drawing so you can mark the spots on your dog and you can watch them. If they seem to grow or ooze or anything, you need to go to your vet immediately. I always ask for a needle aspirate on things that are not easily identifiable, which is about 90% of lumps and bumps. And then you'll know. I mean, the needle aspirate, it's not a huge financial cost and it doesn't really hurt your dog. It's just they stick a needle in, they get some cells, look at it, and then the vet can normally determine if it looks like there are abnormal cells in there or not. But check your dogs once a month for lumps and bumps and make sure you check their mouth and between their toes. Always get their mouth in between their toes. One of our calendar dogs for this month, actually, I just read a post that his mom put in there that, you know, she was always constantly checking her dog for lumps and bumps, but one of the places that she didn't think about was his toes. And of course, it was on his toe that he wound up getting a cancer, and then he eventually passed from it. So don't forget to look under their tails, between their toes, and their armpits, all the good places.
Yeah, and one of my Fuzzybutts, Indiana, you mentioned, Ginger, that the cost of a needle aspirate is not that much, a couple $100 or something like that. But what it gives you and freedom from fear and constant worry. Indiana, Fuzzybutt number 4, has a golf ball size lump in his right side. And we had his vet check it out, do an aspirate a while ago when it was much smaller, and thank God it's a lipoma. So, you know, now every time I see it and I feel it, I know it's not going to get malignant. So whatever you have to pay, if you have a lump or bump on your Fuzzybutt, please go see your vet and have it checked out. All right, everybody, that's the end of this episode. Michelle Williams with Canine Companions, thank you so much for being a part of Fuzzybutts and Friends, and Jeanette and Fiji, the gorgeous two people that are just a wonderful, beautiful team and representatives of such a wonderful organization. Thank you, everybody, again for joining in, for being a part. Ginger, thank you, and to our audience for listening this week. You can listen to us on your podcast platforms such as Spotify and iHeartRadio, or you can go to fuzzybuttsstudios.com and watch this in live and in color. We'll see you next week. Puppy up. Talk soon.